What's up, guys? It's Deep Cut Slasher time. We're going to review a little backwoods slasher from 1983 called The Prey. Let's go. The Prey stars Debbie Thurison, Lori Lethin, Steve Bond, and is directed by Edwin Brown.
It's out there. I swear I saw it.
It was supposed to be a fun weekend camping trip.
Man, am I ready for tonight.
Did you hear something?
But there is something out there in the woods.
What the hell are you doing?
Something horrible.
What's up, guys? It's time for a deep cut slasher review. These are probably my favorite types of reviews to do, especially if it's a movie that I just discovered on my own. This movie is called The Prey from 1983. There is an era release out right now, which is I think only like $22, so I'm definitely going to get that one. This is on Tubi right now. Tubi is the gift that keeps on giving, and I watch the slashers. And what's cool about Tubi too is like when you finish a movie, they'll automatically start another movie of that genre usually. And I was watching this, and immediately when it finished, it started up The Final Terror, which is a great double feature with this because they're both kind of the same type terrain. They're both backwoods slasher type movies. So I'm looking forward to getting into this one. This is a very unique one too, I think. Some would call it a little strange. And maybe that's not a good thing for some people. I liked this movie, though. I did. I think it's very different. But first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. This is really about these kids, these young adults. They're going on this camping / hiking excursion. What they don't know is that the area that they're going to, which is called North Point, it has a history. You see, back in like 1948, which is they show at the beginning of the movie, there was this great fire. And it ended up killing this like tribe of gypsies, except for one person that it left behind, which is the killer of this movie. You're definitely going to draw very big comparisons to Friday the 13th and especially The Burning for this movie because the killer looks a lot like Cropsey in The Burning. Now, going forward, I'm going to talk spoilers in this. I like to talk spoilers for these older movies, even if they're deep cuts, especially if there's something really fun and unique about the last act. And there's quite a few things that happen in this last act that I gotta talk about. So I'll give you a warning once we get to that point, though. But our group of 6 hikers, it's made up of 3 couples, and it's the usual slasher tropes. The guys are trying to hook up, they're hoping to get lucky. The girls are hoping to get romantic. The dialogue in this movie, I think it's par for the course, right? There's no like earth-shattering lines of dialogue in this, right? Hell, I'd even say there are some moments where there's like what I'd call background dialogue where you don't necessarily hear what's being said, or it doesn't really, you might hear every like third word. An example, there's like a campfire setting where all 6 are around and they're all having 3 different conversations with each other. And they're just really unimportant conversations, but they're trying to show you that, hey, they're having a campfire chat. There's this park ranger by the name of Mark that I think he knows that North Point is not the safest place, so he's trying to, I guess, make sure that this group of people, they're safe. Now let's jump into a little bit of the backstory on this movie before I go forward with some of the story beats that I found interesting or maybe not so interesting. This was made in 1979. It was probably being shot around the same time as Friday the 13th, but the movie didn't come out until 1983, 4 years later. And I think this does happen from time to time. I think maybe it has to do with connections, like getting a movie out there as quick as possible. I would imagine it has something to do with, maybe battling it out with the MPAA. Maybe you have to reserve a specific weekend. This doesn't take place around like a holiday or anything. So as far as why it took 4 years to get the movie to come out, I just think maybe it's a networking type thing. Like maybe they didn't have the right connections to get it out as quick as possible. Because I think if this movie would have came out in 1980, I think it would have been far more talked about and popular. Because I think it's a really effective movie, even though as far as like vibe and tone wise, I think it's very different than Friday the 13th, because Friday the 13th, pretty much all the way throughout, you get kills, and you get a lot of kills, and they're graphic. Sure, there's some graphic kills in here, but I don't think that takes front and center as far as like why you would come see this movie. Yeah, it's a slasher and you want to see it for that, but I think they're trying to build tension more than anything, and they save all the real kills for like the second half of the movie. As a matter of fact, the opening of the second half, or I guess about the midway point of the movie, you have Gail and her boyfriend, and that's when you really start seeing the kills, and she's being like suffocated with a sleeping bag. And it's, you know, as far as like the way they shot that scene, it is really interesting looking, because, you know, you see her in a shirt and her panties, her head's being covered with a sleeping bag, but you see like a full body shot of her just kind of writhing and, you know, fighting for her life. But one might even say, getting to this point in the movie, it's maybe a little boring. It does stretch itself out a little bit too much. There are these like transitional shots of like nature scenes, and, you know, the movie's called The Prey, and they're showing like insects and creatures like snakes. Like there's this snake that's eating, I think it's a rat. So I think the director's just trying to splice in little moments of animals killing their prey. The scenes, they kind of overstay their welcome, and it feels like they're padding the runtime. That's what it feels like, because maybe they didn't have enough footage. And I know there is kind of a director's cut, which is I think the version that I watched that's on Tubi. Now, let's jump into the second half of this movie. And I tell you, if the first half was as good quality-wise as the second half, this would be a top-tier slasher as far as I'm concerned. And that doesn't mean that I needed the first half to be made up of the same ingredients as the second half. No, I just think they should have added a little bit more meat to the script, to the dialogue. Maybe built the legend of this killer, you know, this gypsy. But they didn't really do that. All you got to see is kind of the killer's POV. You would hear this like heartbeat, which, funny enough, kind of reminded me of like Teen Wolf at the opening of that movie when he's playing basketball. It's almost a little silly at times, but, you know, they're trying to build that tension. But jumping into the second half, this is where Gail is already missing, and then the other four, they decide to keep going because they think maybe Gail and them, they just kind of left on their own. The excuse is a little weak there. I think if you're with a group of friends and two of them go missing, I think you're going to kind of freak out a little bit, and you're probably going to end that vacation. But, you know, we got a movie to tell, so they keep moving on. There's a section where the guys, they split off from the two girls, which is Nancy and Robin, and the guys go rock climbing. And this is where the killer comes in, and he, you know, one of the guys, he's like hoisting the other guy down, and the killer kills him, and then you see the other guy fall, which is a pretty cool scene, actually, especially when the way he kills him. So this is when it gets really, really chaotic. And there's some interesting camera shots in here, some creative decisions. Like there's one scene where Nancy is on the rock and she sees the killer for the first time. I love the way that she's kind of backing up, and then you see Robin standing behind her with a kind of a weird, you know, just a weird posture. It's a freaky scene. It is. You know, it's like the realization of the prey. And they're like, oh shit, now I have to deal with this head on. And then you have this, you know, epic showdown, this chase. And the gypsy, he has traps set out in the mountains. And of course, Robin, she steps into one of the traps. And when she gets hoisted up, it's just like, it's a surprise. It just kind of happens out of nowhere. And her body just gets slammed against this tree. And there's so many things going on between the performances and what you see on screen that you don't expect. There's really no stars in this movie whatsoever, but I really liked Debbie Thurston. Her reaction, to seeing her friend getting slammed against the tree, and then she has to face the killer. And then Mark, the park ranger, comes in, and there's this like big fight with the killer and everything. And then like the very last thing, and again, this was filmed the same year as Friday the 13th, but it has kind of a shocking ending. because the killer, he seems kind of smitten with Nancy. And so he kidnaps her and takes her into the mountains, which is what they did in the Friday the 13th remake with Whitney. Jason like kidnaps Whitney. Yeah, he kidnaps her and then he impregnates her. And the last thing you hear in this movie is a baby crying. So that poor woman, poor Nancy. Worst vacation ever. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie for how unique it was. And really the pacing's kind of unpredictable. And I think that's kind of a good thing. You know, just when you've seen hundreds of slashers and most of them kind of follow the same template. This one, I think it takes some risks, and those risks don't always land, but when they do land, they really land. I'm kind of mixed with this one, but I can't get it out of my head, so I'm going to give it like a low purchase worthy for sure. I'm going to buy this, the Arrow release, and you can get it for a pretty decent price. And I'm telling you, physical media, have you seen the price of new release physical media movies lately? It's astronomical. It's like 50 north of $50 now for a new release. So you can get this one for like $20, $22, something like that. So if you want it, I would get it. So yeah, that's my review for The Prey, 1983. Let me know what you guys think of this movie. Have you seen it? In the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Become a channel member. Buy me coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.